I parked my Honda Civic 2 blocks away from the house, even though the circular driveway had plenty of space. 3 years ago, my sister Madison had made it clear that the driveway was for family who'd made it, not for renters like me. I'd taken the hint. The November wind off Lake Michigan cut through my coat as I walked toward the Tudor-style house in Winnetka. Every window glowed warm against the early dusk, and I could already smell Mom's sage stuffing wafting through the air. My stomach twisted, not from hunger, but from knowing what was coming. Sarah, my mother. Patricia greeted me at the door in her cream cashmere sweater, pearls perfectly placed. "You're late, honey." We were starting to worry you'd gotten lost again. I hadn't been late. I'd sat in my car for 20 minutes gathering courage. "Traffic," I said simply. She air-kissed my cheek, careful not to smudge her lipstick. "Well, everyone's already here." Madison was just telling us about their new vacation home in Aspen. Of course she was. The dining room looked like something from a magazine spread. Mom's best china gleamed under the chandelier, each place setting complete with more forks than any meal required. The table stretched long, covered in ivory linen, with elaborate cornucopia centerpieces that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. I found my place card at the far end, near the kitchen door. The cardstock was thinner than the others, my name written in ballpoint pen, while everyone else's were calligraphed. Next to Madison's spot sat a cloth napkin with her monogram embroidered in gold thread. Mine was plain white, slightly smaller than the rest. "Sarah's here," Dad announced from his seat at the head of the table, already working on his second bourbon. Our little apartment dweller finally made it to the suburbs. A ripple of chuckles went around the table. I sat down, noticing my chair wobbled slightly. The folding chair from the basement, not one of the dining set. Madison leaned forward, her engagement ring catching the light. "How's the studio apartment?" "SAR still cozy." She said, "cozy," the way people say quaint, like it was a disease they might catch. "It's fine," I said, reaching for my water glass plastic while everyone else had crystal. "You know, Uncle Richard chimed in, cutting into his turkey. At your age, I'd already bought my second property. Real estate's all about timing, Sarah. You can't wait forever." "She's probably waiting for the market to crash," Madison added with a laugh. "Only way she'll afford anything in Cook County." Mom patted my hand. "Not everyone's cut out for ownership, dear. Renting has its advantages. Less responsibility." I nodded, taking a small bite of turkey. It was dry, but I chewed slowly, methodically. They had no idea that I'd been buying properties since I was 24, that my studio apartment was actually my office, where I managed a portfolio worth more than this entire house. That I preferred my Honda, because it didn't attract attention while I was touring distressed properties. Remember when Sarah wanted to be a real estate mogul? Dad's voice boomed with false nostalgia. Had all these big dreams about flipping houses. Thank God she came to her senses and got that stable office job. "Data entry right?" Aunt Helen asked. "Administrative assistant," I corrected quietly. "Same thing," Madison waved dismissively. "At least it's steady. Not everyone can handle the pressure of real ownership." The server. Yes, Mom had hired servers for Thanksgiving, approached with a different plate than everyone else's. While the family ate off Mom's wedding, china mine was plain white ceramic, chipped on the edge. My turkey portion was noticeably smaller, and instead of the silver fork everyone else used, mine was plastic. "Oh," Mom said, noticing my look. "We ran out of the good settings." "You don't mind, do you? You're so easygoing." The room erupted in conversation about property values, mortgage rates, and renovation plans. Madison dominated with tales of their kitchen remodel, Viking range marble countertops, custom cabinets. Dad shared his opinions on the housing market, with the authority of someone who hadn't closed a deal in a decade. "You know what kills me," Uncle Richard said, gesturing with his wine glass. "These millennials complaining about housing costs. If they'd just stop buying avocado toast and coffee, they'd have a down payment in no time." "Exactly," Madison agreed. "Sarah probably spends, $5 a day on coffee. That's," she pretended to calculate, $1,800 a year. "There's your house fund." I sipped my water, thinking of the coffee shop I'd bought last year. The one where Madison got her daily latte, completely oblivious that her poor sister owned it. "Speaking of houses," Dad said, his voice taking on that particular tone that meant bad news was coming. "Your mother and I need to talk to you all about something." The table quieted. "As you know, the market's been tough on our investments." He cleared his throat. "We're thinking of refinancing, maybe even downsizing." "Downsizing," Madison's voice pitched high. "But this is our family home." "Nothing's decided," Mom said quickly. "We're just exploring options. The mortgage payments have gotten a bit challenging." I watched this unfold, my face carefully neutral. They didn't know I'd been tracking their mortgage through public records. Didn't know I'd watched them pull equity out repeatedly for vacations and cars they couldn't afford. Didn't know their latest refinance application had been denied. "Maybe Sarah could help Madison," said suddenly, voice dripping with false sweetness. She must have saved so much money living in that tiny apartment. "What do you pay? SAR $600 a month." "Something like that," I murmured. "See all that saved money? Surely you could help Mom and Dad with a few payments. Family helps family, right?" The irony was suffocating. They mocked me for being poor while simultaneously expecting me to bail them out. "I'll think about it," I said. Dad raised his glass. "That's my girl, always practical. Not ambitious, but practical." As dessert was served, I got a noticeably smaller slice of pie. Madison pulled out her phone to show off photos of their Aspen house. 4 bedrooms, 3 baths, and this gorgeous mountain view. The previous owners were desperate to sell, so we got an amazing deal. "Must be nice," Aunt Helen sighed. "Some people have all the luck." "It's not luck," Madison said, looking directly at me. "It's about making smart choices, taking risks, not being afraid of success." Mom nodded approvingly. "Madison's always been our go-getter. Some people are leaders, others are supporters." The word supporter hung in the air like smoke. That's what I was to them, the family failure who existed to make everyone else look better by comparison. "Actually," Mom continued, turning to me with that practiced smile, "have you given any more thought to your future, Sarah? You can't rent forever. Maybe we could co-sign something small for you. A starter condo. There's a new development going up. The units are modest." "Very modest," Madison added, "but perfect for someone just starting out, even at 32. The dig was precise. 32 and just starting out, while Madison, 3 years younger, was on house number 2. I folded my napkin, the plain white napkin, and placed it beside my chipped plate. "I appreciate the offer. We could even help with the down payment," Dad said magnanimously. "Consider it an early inheritance. Maybe $5,000. That should cover, what, FHA minimum. $5,000? They thought $5,000 was generous, while they burned through hundreds of thousands in equity. "That's very kind," I said. Madison's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and laughed. "Oh my God, the property management company. Apparently, someone wants to buy the Winnetka house. Can you imagine, as if we'd sell our family home to some stranger?" My pulse quickened, but I kept my face neutral. "What kind of offer?" Dad asked, suddenly interested. They didn't say. Just asked if we'd consider selling. I told them absolutely not. This house isn't just property. It's our legacy. Our children will grow up here, Mom added. Though Madison didn't have children yet. Just like you girls did. Well, Sarah, you spent most of your time at the library. But still, more laughter. Always laughter at my expense. Besides, Madison continued with the market this hot, we'd be fools to sell. This place will be worth millions in a few years. I knew exactly what it was worth. I knew because I'd already bought it. They just didn't know it yet. The evening wound down, with more subtle jabs, disguised as concern. Was I dating anyone? Probably hard to bring someone back to a studio. Did I want kids? Better hurry. Apartments aren't great for families. Had I considered going back to school? Maybe an MBA would help with career advancement. As I helped clear dishes, they insisted, since I was so helpful, I overheard Madison in the living room. I feel bad for her sometimes, she was saying. It must be hard watching everyone else succeed. But some people just aren't built for more, you know. She's always been content with less. Mom agreed. Remember in high school, never pushed herself. Never wanted more. At least she's stable, someone offered. Stable, Madison repeated. That's one word for it. I carried plates to the kitchen, each step measured. In my pocket, my phone held emails from my lawyer contracts, from my property management company bank statements that would make their eyes water. But I stayed quiet, washing dishes with plastic gloves, while they used the good china I'd eventually own. Sarah, Mom appeared in the kitchen doorway. Before you go, your father and I wanted to discuss the help you mentioned. For the mortgage. Of course, I said, drying my hands. We're thinking maybe $1,000 a month, just until we get back on our feet. Family helps family, like Madison said. $1,000 a month from the girl who couldn't afford a house. The girl they seated by the kitchen with a plastic fork. The girl whose napkin wasn't worth monogramming. I'll see what I can do, I said. She hugged me quick and efficient. You're such a good daughter. So reliable. Not flashy like your sister, but reliable. As I walked to my car past the circular driveway I wasn't welcome to use, I pulled out my phone and sent a single text to my lawyer. Proceed with the acquisition. Full asking price. The wind had picked up scattering leaves across the suburban street. Every house glowed with warmth in family gatherings, but I didn't feel cold anymore. I felt something else entirely. Clear. They wanted me to help with the mortgage. I'd do them one better. I'd pay it off entirely, and then I'd own every brick, every tile, every perfectly manicured blade of grass they'd used to measure my worth. They thought I couldn't afford a house. Tomorrow, they'd learn I could afford theirs. The next morning arrived gray and quiet, the kind of Midwest November day that seemed to press down on everything. I was up before dawn, sitting at my actual desk in my Lincoln Park townhouse. Not the studio apartment my family imagined, but a restored, 3-story graystone I'd bought in cash 2 years ago. My laptop screen glowed with numbers, contracts and email threads that would reshape everything. The acquisition had been in motion for months, hidden behind layers of LLCs and management companies. My family's house wasn't just over-leveraged, it was drowning. 3 mortgages, 2 home equity lines of credit, 1 pending tax lien they didn't even know about yet. I'd watched it all unfold through public records, waiting for the right moment. When their property management company, really just a subsidiary of my real estate firm, reached out yesterday, it wasn't random. It was precision. My phone buzzed. A text from Madison. Hey, can you send that $1,000 for Mom and Dad today? They need it for Monday's payment. I stared at the message, then opened my banking app. But instead of sending money to my parents, I initiated a different set of transfers. One by one, I removed myself from every financial entanglement we'd ever had. The joint account Mom had insisted on for emergencies, closed funds, transferred to my personal account. The credit card where I was an authorized user, removed. The family phone plan I'd been paying for since college, canceled my line, ported my number. The streaming services on my credit card that everyone used, passwords, changed payment methods, updated. Each click felt like cutting a small rope that had been slowly strangling me. My phone rang. Mom, Sarah, honey, the Netflix isn't working. Oh, I kept typing, finalizing the house purchase documents. It says, the password is wrong. Can you check? I changed it, I said simply. A pause. Why would you do that? It's my account. I'm reorganizing my finances, but we all use that account. Her voice took on that particular tone of maternal disappointment. Madison's in the middle of a series. I'm sure Madison can afford her own Netflix. She has 2 houses. Sarah, don't be petty. Petty. Standing up for myself was petty. Paying my own bills was petty. I need to go, Mom. Work calls. Wait, did you send the money? For the mortgage? Not yet. Sarah, they need it by Monday. You promised. I said I'd see what I could do. I saw. I can't. The silence stretched between us like a taut wire. You can't or you won't. Does it matter? Of course it matters. We're your parents. We're in trouble here. Then maybe you should ask Madison. She's the successful one, remember? I hung up before she could respond. Within minutes, my phone exploded with texts. Dad, your mother is in tears. Call her back and apologize. Madison WTF, Sarah, Mom, says you're being difficult about money. It's just $1K. I spend more than that on shoes. Uncle Richard heard you're giving your parents a hard time. Family disappoints sometimes, but we don't abandon each other. I muted the thread and went back to my emails. My lawyer had sent the final documents. The house was mine, or rather, it belonged to Riverside Holdings, LLC, which belonged to me. The beauty of cash purchases is they can close fast. My family wouldn't know until it was done. By noon, the family group chat had devolved into a Sarah-bashing session. I watched the messages pile up while I sat in my actual office, not the data entry cube they imagined, but the top floor of a converted warehouse where I ran my real estate investment firm. Ms. Chen, my assistant, knocked. Your 1 o'clock is here. Send them in. My 1 o'clock was James Morrison, the best property attorney in Chicago. He set a thick folder on my desk. It's done, he said. As of, he checked his watch. 43 minutes ago, you own 42 Maple Lane, Winnetka, Illinois. I signed, where he indicated each signature, another nail in the coffin of my family's assumptions. When do they find out, he asked. Monday. When they try to make their mortgage payment to a company that no longer holds their note. He whistled low. That's cold. No, I corrected. That's business. The same business they said I'd never understand. After he left, I sat alone in my office, staring at the deed. The house where I'd been made to feel small, where I'd eaten off chipped plates with plastic forks, where my achievements were invisible because they didn't come with the right pedigree. It was mine now. My phone rang again. Madison this time. I let it go to voicemail and played it on speaker. Sarah, I don't know what kind of midlife crisis you're having, but you need to snap out of it. Mom and Dad are literally going to lose the house. The house, Sarah, where we grew up, where our kids will grow up. And you're seriously going to let that happen over some petty sibling rivalry? I know you're jealous of my success, but this is low even for you. Call me back. Jealous. They always assumed it was jealousy. Not hurt, Not exhaustion, not self-respect, finally catching up to years of disrespect. Just jealousy. I pulled up my portfolio on the main screen. 14 properties in Chicago, 6 in Milwaukee, 2 in Detroit. The coffee shop Madison frequented. The yoga studio Mom loved. The golf course Dad played at twice a week. All mine, hidden behind LLCs and management companies. I'd been building an empire while they laughed at my Honda Civic. By evening, the calls had escalated. Extended family got involved. Cousins I hadn't heard from in years suddenly cared about family unity. The narrative was already forming. Sarah the selfish. Sarah the bitter. Sarah who couldn't handle everyone else's success. I ordered Thai food from the place downstairs, another property I owned, and ate it straight from the container while reviewing renovation plans. The Winnetka house needed work. New roof, updated HVAC, modern kitchen. I'd already lined up contractors. A knock at my door surprised me. I rarely had visitors at the townhouse. Through the security camera, I saw my cousin, Emma Madison's best friend, and Flying Monkey. I opened the door, but didn't invite her in. "Nice place for a studio apartment," she said, looking past me at the obvious luxury. "What do you want, Emma?" "Madison sent me. She's worried about you." "Madison's worried about the mortgage." Emma's face hardened. "You know what? Yeah, she is. Because normal people worry when their parents might lose their home. Normal people help family. Normal people don't serve their family members dinner on chipped plates with plastic forks." She blinked. "What?" "Nothing. Tell Madison I'm fine. Tell her to worry about herself. This is really about Thanksgiving. Jesus, Sarah, grow up." "I have. That's the problem." I closed the door on her protests. Through the window, I watched her pull out her phone, no doubt reporting back to Madison. Let them talk. Let them spin their stories. Monday would come soon enough. That night, I sat in my living room, my real living room, with its exposed brick and designer furniture, and pulled out a box I'd kept for too long. Photos from family gatherings, report cards they'd never acknowledged, the acceptance letter to Northwestern they'd called a waste of money because state school was good enough for Sarah. One by one, I fed them to the fireplace, not out of anger, but ceremony. The girl in those photos, the one trying so hard to earn a place at their table, she deserved a Viking funeral. My phone finally silent, after I'd blocked 24 numbers, sat dark on the coffee table. Tomorrow, the group chat would explode again. Emma would report back about my fancy apartment. The family mythology would shift to accommodate this new information, probably something about me being in debt or keeping secrets or whatever story. Let them maintain their hierarchy. But Monday would shift everything. I pulled up the contractor bids one more time. The kitchen would go first. Tear out everything, start fresh. No more hosting Thanksgivings, where some family members were worth crystal and others got plastic. The dining room, where I'd been seated by the kitchen, like hired help, it would become a library. Floor-to-ceiling books, where their judgment used to live. The last document I reviewed was the notice that would be posted on Monday. Official change of ownership. New management company. Rent increased to market rate, nearly double what they thought their mortgage was. They could stay, of course, as tenants. Month-to-month lease. Background check and credit report required, just like any other renters. I smiled, thinking of Madison's words. Not everyone's cut out for ownership. She was right. They weren't. Monday arrived like a hammerfall. I was in my office by 6 a.m., watching the sun rise over the Chicago skyline through floor-to-ceiling windows. 3 monitors displayed different feeds, email property management software, and a security camera view of the Winnetka house. Everything was quiet. For now, at 8:47 a.m., the first domino fell. My property manager Diane called. The Mitchells just tried to make their mortgage payment. The bank informed them the loan was paid off. They're confused. I imagine they are. How do you want to handle this? By the book. Send the welcome packet. New lease terms. Rental application, the works. They're going to flip. Probably. I'd barely hung up when my new number that only 6 people had buzzed. Somehow, Madison had gotten it. Her text was in all caps. What did you do? I didn't respond. There would be time for explanations later. Maybe. By 10 a.m., the family group chat, which Emma was screenshotting and sending to me, having apparently switched sides after seeing my townhouse, was in full meltdown mode. Mom, the bank says we don't have a mortgage anymore. This has to be a mistake. Dad, I'm heading there now. Probably a computer error. Madison, this is Sarah. I know it is. Uncle Richard, don't be ridiculous. Sarah couldn't afford a cup of coffee, let alone a house. Madison, she's been lying to us. Emma saw her apartment. It's a fucking brownstone. The expletives started flying after that. The careful family facade cracking in real time. By noon, they had the full picture. The welcome packet from Riverside Holdings had arrived by courier. I'd made sure it included everything: lease agreement, rent amount, $8,500 per month, the actual market rate for a house that size in Winnetka, and a cheerful note about their new landlord's commitment to maintaining the property. My phone rang. Unknown number. I let it go to voicemail. Dad's voice, no longer booming with authority, but tight with rage. Sarah Elizabeth Mitchell. You call me back right now. I don't know what kind of game you're playing, but delete. Another voicemail. Mom this time, crying. How could you do this to us? Your own family. We raised you. We loved you. Delete. Madison shrieking. You fucking bitch. You've been planning this, haven't you? All these years, pretending to be poor. Delete. I had work to do. Real work. Not the data entry they'd imagined, but managing a portfolio worth more than they'd ever dreamed I could achieve. But by 2 p.m., I realized something had shifted. The family chat had gone quiet. Too quiet. And then, Emma sent me a screenshot that made my blood run cold. Madison had posted on Facebook, "My sister has stolen our family home through predatory lending practices. She pretended to be poor while secretly building a fortune, and now she's evicting her own parents. Please share this. Sarah Mitchell of Chicago is a heartless monster who preys on her own family." Within an hour, it had 50 shares. By dinner, it was over 200. The comments were brutal. What kind of person does this to family? Sociopathic behavior. She should be ashamed. Probably illegal. Hope they sue. But then something interesting happened. Other comments started appearing. Wait, how did she steal it if she paid off your mortgage? So she's been successful this whole time, and you're mad about it. Sounds like there's more to this story. One comment stopped me cold. From Marcus Webb, a contractor I'd worked with. Sarah Mitchell is one of the most ethical developers I know. If she did this, there's a reason. Also, she literally saved the Riverside Community Center from demolition last year. So maybe check your facts. The tide was turning slightly, but Madison wasn't done. By evening, she'd escalated. A new post this time, with photos from Thanksgiving. The chipped plate, the plastic fork, the folding chair. But she'd miscalculated. Wait, someone commented you gave your sister a plastic fork at Thanksgiving, while everyone else had silver. Why is she sitting by the kitchen? Is that a folding chair? At a family dinner. The narrative was fracturing. Madison tried to delete the post, But screenshots were already circulating. Emma, fully converted to my side, now was feeding me updates. "They're panicking," she texted. "Your mom called me crying, asking if I knew where you lived. Madison's husband is suggesting they lawyer up. Let them." I had receipts for everything. Years of financial neglect, public humiliation, casual cruelty, documented in texts and emails they'd carelessly sent. That night, I sat in my home office reviewing the renovation plans. The contractors would start next month. I'd given my family 30 days to relocate, generous considering Illinois law only required 5 for month-to-month tenancies. My new phone rang. "Diane again. They've lawyered up," she said. "Thomas Morrison from Morrison and Associates." I laughed. "Tom Morrison? He's their lawyer. You know him? He's my lawyer's golf buddy. This should be interesting." Also, there's something else. A Margaret Chen called, says she's from the Tribune, wants to do a story on the Thanksgiving house flip. Her words, "The media." Of course. Madison's Facebook post had broken containment. "Give her my lawyer's number," I said. No direct comments. But I knew this was spiraling beyond family drama now. By morning, it would be a public spectacle. The successful daughter who hid her wealth, the family who mocked her for being poor, the house that became a battleground. I walked to my window, looking out at the city lights. Somewhere in Winnetka, my family was probably huddled around their dining room table, the one I now owned, strategizing, planning their next attack, crafting their victim narrative. They still didn't understand. This wasn't about revenge. It wasn't even about the house, really. It was about the moment they decided I was worth less than them. The moment they literally gave me scraps while feasting on plenty. The moment they made their love conditional on my failure. My phone buzzed. "Emma again. Madison's lost it. She's talking about squatters' rights. Your dad is convinced he can charm his way out of this. Your mom just keeps crying. It's a mess." "And you?" I asked. "I'm apartment hunting. Can you recommend a good rental agent? Preferably one who serves all their tenants with actual silverware." Despite everything, I smiled. Maybe something good could come from this wreckage, after all. Tomorrow would bring lawyers and journalists and more family fury. But tonight, I owned the house where they'd made me feel worthless. And for the first time in my life, that felt like justice. Tuesday morning brought a media storm I hadn't fully anticipated. The Thanksgiving revenge. Chicago developer buys family home after holiday humiliation. Chicago Tribune. From plastic forks to property mogul. The Sarah Mitchell story. Block Club Chicago. Family feud. Goes viral. Daughter's ultimate payback. NBC Chicago. I sat in my office watching my assistant field calls. Every news outlet in the city wanted an interview. My LinkedIn was flooded with connection requests. My email inbox had tripled overnight. But it was the Facebook war that truly showed how desperate my family had become. Madison had gone full scorched earth. She'd created a page, Justice for the Mitchell family. In 24 hours, she'd posted childhood photos of me with captions about how they'd sacrificed everything for my education. Screenshots of old texts where I'd said, "I love you," to prove I was manipulative. A tearful video of mom claiming I'd stolen their memories. Wild accusations about fraud, elder abuse, and conspiracy. The comments section was a battlefield. For every sympathetic relative, there were 3 strangers pointing out inconsistencies. "So she paid off your mortgage, and you're mad about it. The plastic fork photo is really backfiring here, Madison. Maybe treat your family better next time." But Madison wasn't the only one escalating. Dad had taken a different approach, the business angle. He'd reached out to every professional contact we shared spinning a tale of corporate malfeasance. His LinkedIn post was a masterpiece of manipulation, deeply saddened to share that my daughter Sarah has engaged in predatory real estate practices against her own family. After years of supporting her education and career, she has chosen to weaponize her success against those who loved her most. I urge anyone considering business with Mitchell Properties to reconsider. What he didn't know was that Mitchell Properties didn't exist. Every building I owned was under different LLCs. His attempt to destroy my business reputation was hitting air. Still, the damage was spreading. Aunt Helen went on a local radio show, painting me as a millennial gone wrong. Uncle Richard wrote an op-ed for a suburban newspaper about the death of family values. Even distant cousins I'd never met were sharing their concerns about my mental state. By Wednesday, they'd found my coffee shop. I watched through security cameras as Madison stood outside Divine Grind on North Avenue, telling anyone who'd listen that the owner was a sociopath who evicted her own parents. She'd printed flyers with my face and predatory landlord in red letters. What she didn't expect was my staff's response. Miguel, my manager, walked out with free coffee for the small crowd that had gathered. "Fun fact," he said loudly, "Sarah Mitchell paid for our entire staff to have health insurance. Full coverage. Dental too. How's your employer treating you?" One by one, my employees started sharing stories. How I'd paid for Janine's night classes. How I'd given Marcus a loan for his mom's medical bills. How I'd kept everyone on payroll during COVID, even when we were closed. Madison's crowd dispersed. She stood alone on the sidewalk, holding her stack of flyers, as customers walked past her into the shop. That's when the counter-narrative began. A TikTok went viral. The real Sarah Mitchell story. Created by someone I'd never met, it compiled public records of my charitable donations, stories from tenants about below-market rent during hardships, before-after photos of buildings I'd restored. The Thanksgiving photo now labeled how they treated their family. The video hit 1 million views in 6 hours. Then came the investigative pieces. Real journalists had started digging into my family's finances. The Chicago Sun-Times ran a brutal exposé, Mitchell Family Mortgage Crisis, a history of financial mismanagement. They'd found everything. Dad's failed business ventures funded by home equity, Madison's bankruptcy filing from 5 years ago, the boat they bought while claiming poverty, the luxury vacations charged to credit cards. The article included a timeline showing how their mortgage had ballooned from $400K to $1.2 million through serial refinancing. My phone rang. James Morrison, my lawyer. "Their attorney wants to meet," he said. Tom Morrison. No relation, despite the name. He's concerned about their position. What position they have no position. That's what concerns him. He's suggesting mediation. No, Sarah. They had 30 years to try mediation. They chose humiliation instead. File the eviction paperwork. That afternoon, something unexpected happened. Grandma Mitchell, my father's mother, called my office line. "Sarah." Her voice was thin but clear. "It's Grandma." I almost hung up. Almost. "I'm listening." I saw the photos. The Thanksgiving photos. A long pause. "I didn't raise your father to treat family that way. I'm ashamed." I said nothing. "I have something for you," she continued. "Something I should have given you years ago. Can we meet?" Against my better judgment, I agreed. We met at a neutral location, a Starbucks in Evanston. She was smaller than I remembered, but her eyes were sharp. She pushed an envelope across the table. "Open it later," she said. "But know this, I see you. I've always seen you. And I'm sorry I didn't speak up sooner. She left without ordering anything. I sat there, envelope in hand, as the world moved around me. Inside was a check for $50,000 and a note. This was meant for your college fund. Your father told me you dropped out. I see now that was another lie. Build something beautiful. Grandma, I stared at the check. Not because I needed the money, but because someone in my family had finally seen the truth. That evening, Madison made her biggest mistake yet. She went on local news for a live interview, thinking she could control the narrative. The reporter Samantha Chen had done her homework. So Madison, you claim your sister stole your family home. Can you explain how someone steals something by paying off the mortgage? Madison fumbled. It's complicated. She manipulated the system. According to public records, your parents were facing foreclosure. Is that correct? We were working through some challenges, and your sister paid off the entire mortgage in cash, saving your parents from foreclosure. How is that theft? Madison's face reddened. She's charging us rent. Market rate rent for a house you can no longer afford. We could afford it if she hadn't what been successful. The interview devolved from there. Madison tried to paint me as manipulative, but every answer made her look worse. When Samantha brought up the Thanksgiving photo, Madison actually said, "It was just a joke. She's too sensitive." The clip went viral with the caption, "Woman admits to bullying sister. At Thanksgiving surprised when sister stops helping financially." My phone buzzed. Emma texted, "Madison is melting down. She just fired their lawyer. Your dad is drinking. Your mom won't come out of her room. The moving truck comes tomorrow." I looked out my office window at the city I'd quietly conquered while they laughed at my Honda Civic. Tomorrow, they'd have to leave the house where they'd made me feel worthless. Part of me felt nothing. No satisfaction, no guilt, just empty. But then I thought about Grandma's check, about Miguel defending me outside the coffee shop, about the comments from strangers who saw through my family's lies. Maybe the real revenge wasn't taking their house. Maybe it was finally letting the world see who they really were, and who I'd always been. Thursday morning started with my attorney calling at 6 a.m. "You need to see this," James said. "Check your email." I opened my laptop to find a cease and desist letter from a new law firm, Barrett, Klein and Associates. Not the suburban lawyer anymore. They'd hired serious guns, but it wasn't the legal threat that made me pause. It was the attachment, a sworn affidavit from my mother, claiming I'd been systematically planning this takeover for years, and that I'd manipulated family finances to create artificial distress. "She's claiming you hacked their accounts," James said. "Moved money around to make them miss payments. It's absurd, but it makes a good headline," I finished. Within hours, the narrative shifted again. "Daughter's revenge or calculated scheme?" asked the Tribune. My family had found their angle. I wasn't just opportunistic. I was criminal. That's when I decided to break my silence. I called Margaret Chen at the Tribune. "I'll give you an exclusive. Full documentation. Everything." We met at my office that afternoon. I'd assembled everything: bank records, emails, text messages, photos. Years of evidence laid out chronologically. This goes back to 2014, I showed her. The first time they asked for money. Just a small loan, they said, for Mom's medical bills. The records showed the truth. The $5,000 medical loan coincided perfectly with their cruise to Alaska. Here's 2016. Dad's business was struggling. I gave them $20,000. I pulled up more records. 2 weeks later, Madison posted photos from her wedding in Cabo. Guess who wasn't invited? Margaret studied the timeline I'd created. Every emergency loan matched with luxury purchases. Every tearful request preceded vacation photos. The pattern was undeniable. But here's the interesting part. I said, pulling up their mortgage history. They refinanced 6 times in 10 years, each time pulling out equity. Where did it go? I showed her the paper trail. Cars, boats, renovations that never happened, failed investments in Dad's friends' schemes. And you tracked all this. I'm in real estate. Due diligence is what I do. I leaned back. I knew they were heading for foreclosure 2 years ago. I tried to warn them. Here, I showed her the email thread. My careful warnings ignored, dismissed, as Sarah being negative again. So you prepared to buy it? I prepared for the inevitable. When you work in distressed properties, you recognize the patterns. Margaret reviewed everything, taking notes. Then she asked the question everyone wanted answered. Why the secrecy? Why not tell them about your success? I pulled up one final email thread. From 2018, I just closed my first major deal profit of $400,000. Excited I'd shared the news with my family. Dad's response, don't get too big for your britches. One lucky break doesn't make you successful. Madison, make sure you save enough for taxes. You know how bad you are with money. Mom, that's nice, dear. Madison just got promoted to senior manager. Every achievement was dismissed. Every success was minimized. So I stopped sharing. It was easier to be the failure they expected than the success they resented. Margaret's article ran Sunday morning. Front page of the business section. The Mitchell Millions. A family fortune built on silence. She'd fact-checked everything. Interviewed former employees, tenants, business partners. The portrait that emerged wasn't of a vengeful daughter, but of a methodical businesswoman who'd built an empire while her family wasn't looking. The sidebar ran the numbers. Portfolio value $47 million. Properties owned, 23. Employees, 67. Annual charitable giving, $500,000. Years of family support, 10. Amount given to family, $387,000. Number of times thanked, 0. The public response was swift. Plastic Forkgate started trending. Someone created a Sarah Mitchell Appreciation Facebook group that gained 10,000 members in a day. My coffee shop had lines around the block, supportive customers wanting to show solidarity. But the real bombshell came Monday afternoon. Grandma Mitchell went on record. She'd given her own interview to the Sun-Times, and she didn't hold back. She confirmed every story about my father's entitlement, added new ones about Madison's bratty childhood, revealed that my parents had borrowed and never repaid money from every family member. I'm 87 years old, she said. Too old to keep family secrets that protect the wrong people. Sarah didn't steal that house. She saved it from my son's stupidity. And if he'd treated her with an ounce of respect, she probably would have let them stay. The quotes were devastating. Tom always thought he was smarter than everyone. Turns out his failure daughter was the only one with sense. Madison learned from her parents. Take, 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 then play victim when the well runs dry. That Thanksgiving photo broke my heart. Who gives their child a plastic fork? Who does that? My family's response was predictable. Dad released a statement calling his mother senile. Madison posted a tearful video about elderly manipulation. Mom stayed silent, but neighbors reported seeing moving trucks at the house. Tuesday brought unexpected visitors. 3 of them, actually. First was Marcus Webb, the contractor. That community center you saved. My daughter goes there for after-school programs. Never knew it was you. Respect. Then Mrs. Chen from the yoga studio. You lowered my rent during COVID without me asking. Just got a notice saying, times are hard for everyone. I never forgot that. Finally, and most surprisingly, My cousin Jake, Madison's brother. I need to apologize, he said, standing awkwardly in my office. I knew how they treated you. We all did. We just went along with it. Why now, I asked. Because Grandma's right. And because, he hesitated, because I have kids now. And if anyone ever made them feel the way we made you feel, I'd burn the world down. He left his business card. If you ever want to grab coffee, real coffee, with actual mugs. That evening, I drove past the Winnetka house. The lights were off. My family had vacated 3 days early, probably to avoid more media attention. I parked and walked through the empty rooms. The dining room, where I'd been humiliated. The kitchen I'd been seated next to, like staff. The chandelier they'd admired while I sat in darkness. Tomorrow, renovation would begin. The dining room would become a library, as planned. The kitchen would be opened up, made welcoming. The chandelier would stay not for them, but because it was beautiful. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This is your mother. We're gone. I hope you're happy. You got what you wanted, the house and your revenge, but you lost your family. I stood in the empty room where they'd served me scraps on chipped plates and typed back. I lost my family years ago. I just finally stopped paying for the privilege. Then I blocked the number and called my contractor. Let's start demo tomorrow. I want this place filled with light. 2 weeks into December, the gloves came off completely. My family had regrouped, hired new lawyers, Brennan and Associates, known for aggressive litigation, and filed a lawsuit that made headlines across Chicago. Mitchell family sues daughter for fraud, emotional distress, and elder abuse. They were seeking $5 million in damages and the return of the house. I sat in the conference room of Morrison and Associates, reviewing the complaint with my legal team. James had brought in reinforcements, Lisa Chen, a fraud specialist, and Marcus Thompson, who handled elder abuse defense. They're throwing everything at the wall, Lisa said, flipping through pages. Undue influence breach of fiduciary duty, intentional infliction of emotional distress. My favorite is theft by deception, Marcus added. Apparently not bragging about your wealth constitutes fraud, so. James leaned forward. The concerning part is the elder abuse angle. Your parents are both over 65. Judges take that seriously. They took advantage of me for a decade, I said. How is that not abuse? Because you're successful, Lisa replied bluntly. Success negates victimhood in many people's minds. The discovery phase was brutal. They demanded 10 years of financial records, emails, text messages. They wanted to depose my employees, my tenants, anyone who'd ever done business with me. It was a fishing expedition designed to find something, anything they could twist. But discovery goes both ways. Holy shit, Lisa said during one late-night session, staring at her laptop. Your father has 3 judgments against him. Did you know about these? I looked at the screen. Unpaid debts to contractors, a settlement from a car accident. He'd caused a business loan in default. No, but I'm not surprised. And Madison. Marcus pulled up another file. Filed for bankruptcy in 2019, but never completed the process. Opened 17 credit cards in the last 5 years. Current debt load is, wow, how much? $340,000, not including the mortgage on their Aspen house. The pieces were falling into place. This lawsuit wasn't about justice or family. It was desperation. They needed money, and I was their last cash cow. The first deposition was mine. 8 hours in a sterile conference room. Their lawyer, Richard Brennan himself, trying to break me. Ms. Mitchell, when did you decide to destroy your family? I decided to stop enabling them. There's a difference. You secretly amassed wealth while watching them struggle. How is that not malicious? They weren't struggling. They were spending. Also a difference. He pulled out printed emails. This message from 2019. You told your mother you couldn't afford to help with their car payment. Was that a lie? No, I couldn't afford to help with their car payment. I had my own bills, my own business to run. Their financial irresponsibility wasn't my emergency. But you had millions. I had investments, buildings that needed repairs, employees who needed paychecks, taxes that needed paying. Should I have let my business fail to fund their vacations? It went on like that. Every financial decision scrutinized. Every boundary I'd set painted as cruelty. But then came their depositions. Watching my father squirm under questioning was something else. Mr. Mitchell, Lisa, began, you stated your daughter stole your house. Can you explain how paying off a mortgage constitutes theft? She manipulated the situation. How specifically? By not telling us she had money. Were you entitled to her money? She's family. That's not what I asked. Were you legally entitled to her money? He couldn't answer. Madison's deposition was worse. She showed up in designer clothes and jewelry, which Lisa made sure to note for the record. Ms. Hayes, you claim financial hardship due to your sister's actions. Yet you're wearing approximately $30,000 in jewelry. Can you explain? These were gifts. From whom? My husband. When? Madison faltered. Recently. After you filed this lawsuit? I don't see how that's relevant. You're claiming financial distress while making luxury purchases. It's very relevant. But the moment that broke their case came from an unexpected source, their own lawyer. During Mom's deposition, she accidentally revealed something damning. We always planned to leave the house to Madison, she said, tears streaming. Sarah knew that. She was never going to inherit anything anyway. The room went silent. I'm sorry, Marcus said slowly. You're saying you told Sarah she wouldn't inherit the family home. Mom realized her mistake too late. We felt Madison would appreciate it more. When did you tell Sarah this? At her college graduation. I remembered that day. The sting of being told casually that the family home would never be mine, that I was welcomed to visit Madison there someday. And yet Marcus continued, Sarah still gave you $387,000 over 10 years, after being told she'd inherit nothing. Their lawyer tried to object, but the damage was done. The settlement negotiations started 2 weeks later. Their position had crumbled. The fraud claims were laughable. The elder abuse angle fell apart when our forensic accountant showed how they'd systematically drained money from every elderly relative, including Grandma Mitchell. We met in the same conference room where this had all started. My family on one side, me on the other. They looked smaller somehow, defeated. Their new offer was pathetic. Drop the lawsuit in exchange for me selling them the house back at a family discount. No, I said simply. Sarah, please, Mom started. We're desperate. I know. You've been desperate my whole life. Desperate for money, for status, for appearances. The only thing you were never desperate for was a relationship with me that didn't involve my wallet. Dad tried his businessman persona one last time. This is a negotiation. Everything's on the table. No, it's not. The house is mine. You can rent it at market rate or find somewhere else to live. Those are your options. You'd really make us pay rent, Madison spat. After everything, I laughed. Yes, Madison. After everything. After the plastic fork. After the chipped plate. After being told I wasn't good enough to inherit. After funding your lifestyle while being mocked for my choices. After everything, I'm offering you the chance to rent a beautiful home at a fair price, which is more than you ever offered me. Their lawyer whispered urgently to them. Reality was setting in. They could take the rental agreement or have nothing. We'll need time to think, he said. You have 48 hours. After that, I list it on the open market. As we gathered our things to leave, Dad made one last attempt. You've destroyed this family, Sarah. I hope you can live with that. I looked him straight in the eye. I didn't destroy this family. I stopped funding its dysfunction. If it couldn't survive without my money, what kind of family was it? They filed out in silence. That night, Grandma Mitchell called. They're staying with Madison, she said. In the basement. The irony isn't lost on me. Did they sign the rental agreement? No. Pride, you know. They'd rather squeeze into Madison's basement than pay you rent. She paused. You did the right thing, Sarah. Sometimes love means letting people face the consequences of their choices, even when they're family, especially when they're family. How else will they learn? The lawsuit was formally withdrawn the next day. The media had a field day with it. Mitchell family drops suit against daughter, ran with a subtitle, failed to prove. Paying off, mortgage constitutes fraud. But I was done with the circus. The house went on the market priced competitively. Within a week, I had multiple offers from families who actually wanted a home, not a status symbol. The closing was set for January 15th. New year, new beginning. And somewhere in a Naperville basement, my family was learning what it meant to live within their means. Without me, 6 months later, I stood in the renovated dining room of what used to be the Mitchell family home. Sunlight streamed through the restored windows, illuminating built-in bookshelves where the china cabinet once stood. The long table that had divided us was gone, replaced by reading nooks and comfortable chairs. Ms. Mitchell, the reporter from Crane's Chicago business, stood with her photographer. Should we do the interview here? Actually, I said, let's go to the garden. The backyard had been transformed. Where my father's unused boat once sat was now a vegetable garden. The pretentious gazebo had become a greenhouse. Everything that screamed wealth had been replaced with something that created it. So this is now transitional housing for women leaving domestic violence situations, she asked as we settled onto benches. 6 units, I confirmed. Full renovation of the main house and the guest house. They can stay up to 2 years while they rebuild their lives. And the name Rising Table Foundation. What inspired that? I smiled. Everyone deserves a seat at the table. A real seat with real dignity. The photographer captured the moment, and I knew exactly which photo. They'd use me, standing in the doorway, where I'd once been unwelcome, now opening it for others. The article would run next week, From Plastic Forks to Philanthropy, how Sarah Mitchell transformed her family's rejection into Chicago's most innovative housing solution. But that afternoon wasn't about press. It was move-in day for our first residents. Maria, a teacher who'd fled an abusive marriage with her 2 daughters. Jennifer, a nurse starting over after her ex-husband emptied their accounts. Patricia, a grandmother, raising her grandson after her daughter's overdose. This is too nice, Maria said, tears in her eyes as she saw her unit. We don't deserve. Yes, you do. I cut her off gently. Everyone deserves beauty. Everyone deserves safety. Everyone deserves a chance to rebuild. Each unit was fully furnished, stocked with necessities, and importantly, set with real dishes, real silverware cloth napkins. No plastic forks in this house. Not anymore. As the family settled in, my phone buzzed. Emma, who'd become an unexpected friend through all this. You'll never guess who I ran into, her text read. Your mom, at Walmart. She was buying generic groceries and pretended not to see me. I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no guilt. They'd made their choices. Another text, this one, from Jake Kids, are asking when they can see Aunt Sarah again. Lucy drew you a picture. Can we grab that coffee soon? Some bridges, it turned out, could be rebuilt, just not the ones that had been burned from both ends for decades. That evening, I hosted a welcome dinner for the new residents. My real dining room in my townhouse, with matched plates and proper silverware for everyone. We shared stories, laughed over spilled juice, discussed homework help and job interviews. "So what made you do this?" Jennifer asked as we cleared dishes together. "Turn that house into this program." I thought about how to answer. The truth was complicated. It wasn't just altruism, it was transformation. Taking a space where I'd been diminished and turning it into somewhere others could grow. "Sometimes the best revenge is radical kindness," I said finally. "Not to those who hurt you, but to those who need what you needed and never got." She nodded like she understood. Maybe she did. After everyone left, I sat in my office, reviewing portfolios and planning the next acquisition. My business had exploded since the media attention. Turns out, people wanted to work with someone who understood that success wasn't about stepping on others. It was about building stairs for them to climb. My desk phone rang. The caller ID showed a number I hadn't seen in months. Sarah, my mother's voice, was smaller than I remembered. I heard about what you did with the house. The program." I waited. "It's wonderful," she continued. "Really, I'm proud of you." The words I'd waited my whole life to hear. And now they meant nothing. "Thank you," I said simply. "I was wondering. That is, we were hoping. Could we maybe meet for coffee? To talk?" "I don't think that's a good idea." Silence. "Then I understand. I miss my daughter." "You miss my money," I corrected. "You missed your daughter for 32 years while she was sitting right in front of you." "That's not—" She stopped. "You're right. I know you're right. But Sarah, we're struggling. Madison lost the Aspen house. Your father's credit is ruined. We're living in her basement and—" "Mom," I interrupted, "I hope things improve for you. Really. But I can't be your solution anymore. Not even coffee. Take care of yourself." I hung up gently. No anger, no dramatic finish. Just an ending. Later that week, the feature in Cranes came out. The phone didn't stop ringing. Investors wanting in on my next project. Nonprofits seeking partnerships. Speaking requests from business schools. But the call that mattered came from an unexpected source. "Ms. Mitchell, this is David Chen from the MacArthur Foundation. We'd like to discuss your affordable housing model. We think it could be revolutionary if scaled properly. Are you free to meet about funding?" The MacArthur Foundation, Genius Grants, and transformative funding, all because I'd refused to stay small in the chair they'd assigned me. The meeting went well, very well. By spring, we'd have funding to replicate the model in 3 more cities. The Rising Table Foundation would help hundreds of families find their seats at tables that welcome them. I thought about Madison's Facebook posts, now buried under an avalanche of debt and irrelevance, about Dad's LinkedIn rants that had cost him his last consulting gigs, about Mom's tears that could no longer move me. They'd thought making me small would keep them big. Instead, it taught me to expand in ways they'd never imagined. My phone lit up with texts from the residents. Photos of kids doing homework at real desks. Maria's daughters setting the table with real forks for dinner. Small victories that meant everything. Tomorrow would bring more meetings, more plans, more growth. But tonight, I sat in my library. Yes, I had a library now, and pulled out a worn notebook. On the first page in my teenage handwriting, "Someday, I'll matter." I crossed it out and wrote below, "Today I build tables where everyone matters." Outside snow began to fall on Chicago, covering the city in fresh white. Somewhere in Naperville, my family was probably watching the same snow from a basement window. And somewhere in Winnetka, other families were sitting down to dinner at tables that welcomed everyone. The girl with the plastic fork hadn't just made it. She'd made it matter.